In this video, I'm going to be showing you a size comparison of the largest creatures in Ark Survival Ascended, as well as some creatures in Ark lore that are even bigger than the King Titan. I want to start the video off with a size comparison of some of Ark's largest creatures. This is about like the top 20. There's a Rex for comparison, starting with the Carcharodontosaurus and the Giga, which are both around the same size. I think the Giga is just a tad bit bigger, with the Dodo Rex following that. But this should give you a idea compared of how big these guys are compared to something like the King Titan. Of course, the Mosasaur there, then the Bronto. I guess all these size comparisons aren't like 100% accurate because it was just me doing it by eye. So some of these are like super close and you could swap them out. Also wanted to mention the Nunatak, whatever it's called, the Ice Wyvern boss is the same size as the Dodo Wyvern, which I couldn't get on here, but you could just put the Dodo Wyvern right there because that's how big it is. And then the Dragon's basically the same size, just taller. You could see some of the newer creatures like Dreadnoughtus and Oasisaur. Oasisaur is more wider, I guess. It's not as long, but it's pretty big. And then, of course, a lot of the deep sea creatures are going to come in here because they're actually a lot bigger than you might think, because you don't really realize how big they are because they're all underwater all the time. You can't really compare them to some of the land creatures, but they're pretty big. Except the Lead Sictus doesn't really go up in size that much at all with the Alpha. It does a little bit, but not that much. The Alpha Tuso is one of the biggest underwater creatures in the game, just being beat out by the Shastasaurus, one of the newer creatures. This thing is pretty massive. It's right behind the Titanosaur. Might even be around the same size. The Titanosaur, I think, is a little bit longer, so I have it above there. But Titanosaur is pretty big, as you can see. But for a long time, the Titanosaur was the biggest creature in the game, and it's been beat out, obviously, since Extinction came out, with a ton of creatures like the Desert Titan being at number 6. Kind of crazy that Desert Titan's number 6. Like, there's 5 more creatures that are bigger than it, because it's pretty massive. Ice Titan is at number 5. This thing is gigantic. So, like I said, pretty massive. And then after the Ice Titan, I put the Forest Titan, even though I don't know if its like body is this big, but it is a little bit taller, even though maybe you could say the Ice Titan's like bigger just in overall size, but whatever. They're pretty close. The Forest Titan's taller though, which is why I have it at number 4. And then at number 3 is the Mega Mech, which is around the same size as the King Titan, but not as big, just a little bit smaller, I think. But of course, even bigger than the Mega Mech is Rockwell. He's absolutely massive. If you didn't know, like looking at him in the arena, it's kind of hard to tell how big he really is. Like obviously he's big in there, but like he's, like I said, around the same size as the King Titan, almost the same size, bigger than the Mega Mech. Like he is massive, as you can see compared to him. I mean, he's a little bit off the ground, so it maybe makes him look like a little bit taller, but I think they're around the same size. I'd say the King Titan's bigger just because he's way longer. He's got a massive tail there. His body's like bigger overall, so I think the King Titan's definitely bigger in size, but like height-wise, Rockwell's pretty much the exact same as the King Titan. Next, I want to talk about some of the creatures of like the fossils that are found in Ark, because there are some massive fossils that some later in this video dwarf the size of the King Titan, make it look tiny. This one right here is an interesting one because for a while it was the biggest one, and it was on Scorched Earth in the Manticore arena. As you can see, I have a King Titan spawned in here. It's kind of hard to see with this angle, but I only could record for a little bit before it would kick me out of the arena. Even in players only, it doesn't freeze it. So, yeah, but you can see this thing, I think, is around the same size as the King Titan from here. Maybe the head is definitely bigger, but, like, the skeleton itself is about bigger. So it might be a little bit bigger, but I think it's going to be around the same size as the King Titan. But this thing has the same skull as another creature on here, which is a lot bigger, which makes me think that this is a baby. Like, this isn't even, like, the full size of a creature because, like I said, there's, I think, another creature on this list with the exact same skull and the exact same, like, skeletal structure that is way bigger than this one. So I'm pretty sure this is just a same creature of that species that's smaller. And this one's, like, in the Manticore arena, so you could even say that it was, like, manufactured just to, like as part of the arcs. But, like I said, the later on this list one is on Extinction, and that one is on Earth, so like they clearly didn't just make it randomly. So the point is, I'm pretty sure this is a legit skeleton of something that's in Ark. But the next creature I want to talk about is what I was just alluding to, which is the skeleton on Extinction. It's the same skull as the one that's on the Manticore boss fight on Scorched Earth, except this one's a lot bigger. And of course, we have its whole rib cage. There's no like limbs or anything, so we don't know what the limbs look like, but we do have the rib cage there. And it's like massive. It takes up a whole river right there. And you can't spawn in the King Titan on Extinction if it's not in like the boss arena. It'll just immediately despawn. So I couldn't spawn it in for comparison, which is really dumb. You can spawn it in on every other map. So I just had to spawn in the Ice Titan for comparison right next to his head. But of course, right now I'm showing the rib cage here. Absolutely massive. You could literally build a whole base in here and still have plenty of room. And it's crazy big. So here is it, as you can see, the Ice Titan at the very end there. And this is its whole body, not even like with a tail or with the limbs. So this thing is massive. Way bigger than the King Titan, because let's see, the King Titan is maybe like twice as tall as the Ice Titan, maybe a little bit less. So even then, it's still going to dwarf the King Titan. You could probably just eat it in one bite, or not like swallow it in one bite, but it could kill it in one bite because of how massive this thing really is. And since it is like a skeleton on Earth, like it has to be something that lived, which doesn't really make sense, because like I thought the biggest creature was supposed to be the King Titan, and like that was what was like the king of all the corruption and stuff, and why, like, one of the reasons that the arks, they had to make the arks and stuff. Of course, don't know a ton of the ark lore, but I thought the King Titan was like, you know, the main boss. Like, I didn't think there's anything bigger or more powerful than it, but obviously there was, because this giant skeleton is right here. So I guess it's only just guessing what it could be. And then of course, like I said, this skeleton is what makes me think the one on the Manticore is a baby, because it's literally looks exactly the same. It's just smaller. So I've gotten the King Titan here and a comparison of what the skull looks like next to this thing. As you can see, it's about the same size as the King Titan, because when you compare it to the Ice Titan is smaller than the skull, because it doesn't really look that much like it because it's at an angle. But like I said, it's around, I think this is around the same size, give or take, of what the skull is compared to the King Titan. And of course, this isn't accounting for the whole rib cage that's behind it. So this thing really was massive. So like I said, I have no idea what it could be, because the King Titan is supposed to be like the biggest thing ever. Now, obviously, I know for like gameplay reasons, they probably just threw it in there to look cool, but I mean, it is a giant fossil there, so that's kind of what this video is about. So I do want to talk about it, because it is kind of a cool idea thinking of what this thing could be. Obviously, it's probably never going to be a creature that they actually add to Ark, even though it'd be kind of cool. I don't know how they would do that, but I don't think it ever will be. But so we're just gonna have to guess on what it is. Has a obviously giant, like what look like ram horns on the side. They're on both sides, and then there's like a few horns coming at the top. So like I said, it's something, I guess, ram-like maybe. That's all I can really think of because of the horns, but probably not like a ram at all. Just the head wise, because the horns. It's obviously some sort of carnivore with those giant teeth. It just has ram horns on it. I also tried editing the King Titan into this big skull picture, because of course when I did spawn it in, you'd see it for like half a second, and this is how big it looked next to it when that did happen. It was kind of hard to tell, honestly, but this is as close as I could get to the size comparison. Obviously, it's not going to be like 100% accurate, but this is what it kind of looks like. And as you can see, like I said, just makes the King Titan look tiny, which is insane, because you put a Rex next to the King Titan or a Giga, and it looks tiny. And this is making the King Titan look small, which is just ridiculous of how big this skeleton is on here. That giant thing with the ram horns, though, wasn't the only large skeleton we have on a story map. There is this one on Aberration, which is also bigger than the King Titan. I think this one's definitely bigger than the one on Scorched Earth in the Manticore arena, but not nearly as big as the one on Extinction. It's in between those two, but this one's still definitely bigger than the King Titan. I mean, its head is massive. You can see that. It could swallow the King Titan's head easily. And then we have the rib cage there, but I think with the limbs, you would see a massive creature. Like I said, the kind of looks more like a Rex or like a Giga skull, so this just seems like it'd be a big theropod that's the size of the King Titan. Doesn't seem, I was gonna say not realistic, this game's not realistic at all, so it doesn't really matter too much, I guess. But that's what that one just seems like to me. It'd just be a giant theropod that is actually like the size of a Titan, which is crazy. There's also that one on Ragnarok, but Ragnarok's not a story map, so not really gonna count that one. But anyway, that's going to be it for this video. It was a more shorter one talking about this, because I thought it was interesting, so I thought I might make a video on it. Just I was looking at all the different skeletons and how big they were, and I thought I'd show it off in a video because it'd be kind of fun to speculate on what these things are. Obviously, I mean, they probably just threw them in there, like I said, thinking it was cool, or just adding as a part of the map, not really thinking too much of it. But to be fair, maybe that one in Extinction they might have thought of a little bit, because that one is huge, like ridiculous size. So I feel like that had to play some things. There's no way there's just a skeleton of something that's like 5 times the size of the King Titan, and there's just no explanation for it. Like, I don't know. We'll have to see. But anyway, if you guys did enjoy this video, or make sure to leave a like and also subscribe. Thanks for watching, and bye.